white privilege.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ready?
Oh my gosh.
Sarah, where's my wine?
I don't know.
Oh, that one is mine.
Oh.
With a huge lipstick mark. Okay. Just 1 second. My internet's always.
Still back to 20.
Or any squares. Or else you're in trouble.
Dan, you do not need your notes.
You're such a dork. So Asian.
That's my
What an Asian dork.
Ready?
That's
So racist.
Ready?
We're waiting on Nan.
She's going to get her notes. Stop it.
Oh,
I'm Chinese.
3, 2.
I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dana Being Dana. Dun-da-da! We are talking about race. I am your host, Dana Michelle, and with me, I have the delegation of color is here. And they're gorgeous, they're amazing. Again, I'm Dana Michelle, the host of Dana Being Dana, and I'm representing the black delegation. Next.
The Mexican delegation.
You have to say your name.
What's your name?
Say your name.
Mayel.
Anne, and I represent the Indian population.
And where were you born?
I guess I'm kind of confused. I was born in Africa, but I am Indian. Both my parents are Indian, but I was born in Jos, Nigeria.
Which makes you African American.
African Indian
Two
American.
for the
yeah.
black folks.
Hi, I'm Alexis, and I am South Asian.
I think you need to fix that.
Okay, no, I'm white. That's right. Oh wait, I have to say, this is what I said I was going to say. To begin with, I just want to say one thing from the white delegation. I'm sorry.
And that wraps up the show. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank
We're
you.
done. I'm Nan. I'm Asian or Chinese, I guess. We're representing Asia, but
All of Asia.
all of Asia.
Solely through you.
So I'm just a little Chinese girl.
And I'm Robin, and I'm here for the Jews.
Woo!
That's what's up. Awesome. So my first disclaimer is just that we're going to have a ton of fun tonight, and I think we're going to be talking about a very important topic that people don't talk about, which is why we're talking about it. So please share the show. I want everybody to get this message because these are my friends. These are my people. They're not paid yet, and
I should be. That's
In
what I
wine.
would say.
She has a
we're
wine.
paying them in wine.
Yes.
But these are my friends, and this is my life, and that's one thing that I want to underscore with this show about race, about my love, my village, my people, that sees no color. The opinions that are expressed here are representative of the delegation. I think everybody knows a racist if you're not one yourself. And I appreciate you tuning in if you are a racist. Thank you for being here. But I think, and one of my friends, my friend Lynn said it best today. She was talking about, and I appreciate all the support and everybody sharing the promos and the marketing with these beautiful ladies for the show. But they talked about how racism is born out of fear and ignorance. And so we are going to dispel some of those things today. We're going to educate some people today, and we're just going to talk about different cultures. I firmly believe that people will always try to find something to hate. People will always, it was women, it was blacks, now it's gay people. There's always something. Next, it's going to be people with red hair, green hair, blue fingernails, whatever. People will always find something. But in addition to that, I think there is bias. Everybody has bias. It's a part of how you were raised, what you experienced growing up, and things that you carry with you. The problem with bias is just that people don't accept or are not open to changing their opinion. Your opinion can change over time, right? If you've never been around people of different races, when you go to college or you go somewhere else, you are exposed to that. So your perception is not necessarily MTV or what you see on another station on television. It's your day-to-day experiences, and that's what dispels some of these biases. That's what changes the world. And I think more than ever, now more than ever, we need to be changing the world with some of the hate and all the stuff that's out there. So before we do that, though, we're gonna debunk some of these stereotypes. We're gonna talk about some of these things that are out there that are just, quite frankly, not true. So we're gonna start with the black folks, because it's my show. No, I'm just kidding. But I want everybody to be comfortable, and we're gonna talk about some things that are uncomfortable. So I think talking about black people is the first step, because you guys, not everybody knows everybody here on the panel. But I want to talk about some of the typical stereotypes about each race, and we'll start with black people. And I think a lot of the stereotypes that I fight are being considered ghetto. And it's funny because I was raised on the North Shore of Chicago, and if you're not familiar with the North Shore of Chicago, it's where a lot of the sports players raise their families. It's a very affluent area, and I'll get to some of my racist examples. But the typical stereotypes are ghetto, uneducated, lazy, over-sexualized, and I'll just stop there with some of those. Anybody have any others to add? What do people say about black people when there's no black people in the room?
Lazy.
Lazy?
Angry.
Very angry.
Fighters, like always, they want to find.
Yeah.
Chip on their shoulder.
Too opinionated.
Opinionated.
I say chip on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, based on history, it's, being looked down to, but then now I think they're just feel like they have a voice and they want to say something, and then sometimes it's overdone. I mean, to the other end of the spectrum.
What? Joking. I'm not angry.
Relax,
Seriously.
okay? Relax.
I'm not angry. And then I want to just talk about a brief story about when I experienced racism. So I said I grew up on the North Shore, and I was half a mile from my house, and I got pulled over by the police. And they asked me if I knew where I was. Like, do you know where you are? And I said, because he hadn't asked me for my license yet. He just, because of my skin color,
You thought you were lost.
assumed I didn't belong. And I was literally around the corner from my house. So once he saw my license, he knew he had messed up and decided to detain me. At this time I was 16. He detained me past the curfew hour, because at that time your license expired at 16 years old after midnight. So it was like 11:45 type of thing. So he was checking my license down the street from my house and held me until midnight. And so then he's like, well, I got to take you in now, and it was that kind of thing. And so I knew what all that meant, and my parents were livid. So that's just one example of experiencing racism. Now we're going to move on to the Mexican delegation. Mael, what are the typical stereotypes about your race?
We narcos.
Narcos?
Yeah.
We are like drug dealers. We're stealing jobs from the white people. But most of the times, like, we are like the people that are like stealing everything from this country.
Right.
But the truth, we come to this country to fight, to work, to do something better for us.
But there's this fear, there's this inherent fear, right? And we talk about racism being based off of fear and ignorance. There's this fear that Mexicans are, first of all, that they're dying to get into the country, right? But what people don't fail to forget and they fail to realize is that everybody at one point or another, except for black folks, were dying to get into this country. People were jumping on ships, they were trying to get over, they were in chains, but everybody came to this country.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not like my life. It's like not my option to come to this country. My mother, she bring me here to have a better life and do something like better for me, for her. And I think she worked so hard. She never like doing something wrong. She always fight for me and for my brother and sister. The thing, they think we're stealing jobs, we're stealing something, and we always fight for, and we work so hard to find a place to like feel like acceptable
Right.
with other races. but the most hard people is like black people and white people. But at this point of my life, I think it's the best persons I meet. You're my friend.
You are my friend too.
Alexis, and like, it's hard sometimes.
What are some of the other stereotypes about Mexicans, Latinas?
Tequila.
Tequila,
Good dancers.
Great dancers.
I think, I mean, you didn't get into this, but I think, especially in this political era, a lot of people think that they are illegal. Like if you have an accent,
Yes.
Right.
you know, I find like my patients
It's
that
the
are,
assumption.
yeah, my
It's
patients that are
assumption.
Spanish speaking, like when
Yeah.
they meet me, they're like, oh, but I'm legal here. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I mean, you know, because now that we have this new president, like it's very, people are scared, so they try to be
Yeah.
Their,
accepted. And
their
they-
citizenship is called into question.
Right.
Which
A
is
lot more than any
A lot
other
more,
race.
yeah.
Right.
I just interviewed someone yesterday, and he's Hispanic, and you know, on his resume it specifically said legal to work in this country.
Yes.
But you know, as an employer, I'm like, was he e-verified? You know, we need to e-verify him or something like that. It's just a standard procedure we will do to everybody, but you know, there's that stereotype. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is pointed out in his resume.
Right.
That's not something you typically write in a resume, but
right.
Right.
I think he
I think it's
knows about
yeah.
what the employer is
Right.
looking for, so he put it right there. So I think
Right.
that's kind of speak to the point.
Do you want to tell us a brief story about what your experience with racism, given all these stereotypes?
Multiple times. One time I was on the store and I was making wine there, and one lady in front of me, white, she said, I don't know how these people came to this country to like make it so dirty, and they should go back, and they're not supposed to be here because it's really disgusting people. They stealing jobs. They always saying we're stealing jobs. And so many times I feel that way, like they don't want us, but they need us.
Right. Right.
That's the thing. They always saying horrible things about us, like they are like stealing jobs. They don't want you. They're disgusting. They come into here to have so many babies, and they need to go back. But in the meantime, in the back, they say, oh, we need someone they cleaning.
Right.
They take care of kids.
Yes.
Yep.
They do the lawn.
Yes.
A lot of things. And I
Yes.
say, from one side, you don't want me, but the other side, you need
He's
me.
moving.
Support.
Right.
I want to let you know that the white delegation loves you. We love you.
Once again,
Love you.
they've apologized.
Yes. I'm
Moving
sorry.
on.
I'm sorry. I'm
Moving
sorry.
on to the
For that-
Indian.
For that white woman in the
Yes.
line. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We're moving on to the
And I-
Indian/African American delegation.
Well,
What are
there's
some of the stereotypes about your race?
there's a lot of stereotypical ideas about Indians. We all own gas stations and Dunkin' Donuts. You're welcome. And I should have gave you guys some Dunkin' Donuts free coffee. No, we do not all own Dunkin' Donuts
Who's
or
the
a
guy
gas
with the
station.
Simpsons?
That's my uncle.
What was his name?
I think Abu. I don't know.
Abu. Yes.
Yes,
But that's
even
a-
I
that's a
don't know.
stereotype.
But
How do you
yes.
not know that?
Yes, and we all don't have an accent, and we all don't live in huts in India. That's another thing I've gotten a lot when I was young. Do you guys live in a village? Is it made of mud and straw? No, it's made of walls, just like here. So that's some of the common stereotypes for us Indians.
What else are some of the stereotypes?
We're all cheap, but that may be true. I heard you laughing. You know what I'm saying.
I do. I wait at tables.
He's racist.
I
I
Just
think
kidding.
always they say you
Yeah.
smell because
The
because
spice.
The food, all the spices.
I work with people with Indian people and the spices, but they never taste it. And your food are really tasted really good. They don't know that.
Yeah.
They only smell it but never taste
Right,
it.
Right. Right.
Can you briefly describe a time when you experienced racism?
So there's a couple that I can remember, but this one I'm gonna talk about is mainly because I was a child, and obviously it affected me to the point where I still remember it as an adult. The racism was actually with my father. He was going to Men's Warehouse, and I think we were actually in Illinois. We were from Wisconsin, but we drove to Illinois. We went to this Men's Warehouse. Dad, you probably remember the story because we talk about it even till today. But we went in, and the guy who was helping us came up to us and said, "Oh, how can I help you?" And my dad's like, "Oh, I'm looking for a suit for an interview." And he puts a coat on my dad, and then he goes, "Now you look like an American." And we said, "What?" And then we basically walked out. To this day, I know I was young, not even in high school. So that has stuck in my memory since that time. I personally have had my own issues, but I think that story is important to show how, even as a child, these kind of things can stick to you.
And what people think of and what they define as American.
Right.
What is American?
Right.
Moving on, most importantly, to the white people. Yes. Ugh. Just kidding.
I love you that I'm on this show.
I
as the
love
white
you
person.
too. I love you
I
too,
would only
Alexis.
do this for you.
You were
Honestly.
awesome. And
Sacrificial lamb right here.
no, and no one's gonna sacrifice you
Yes, well, thank you.
yet. But what are some of the stereotypes about your race?
That we're racist, that we're small-minded, that we were the ones that, were the, slave owners, that we can't dance, we're no good in bed.
And you are amazing at the worm.
Yeah,
Everybody,
and in bed.
share this
And in bed,
show
too. And in
if
bed.
you've seen Alexis do the worm. You
Yes.
said in bed?
No.
Wait, what?
I think I hurt my back. I really can't do the worm anymore. I
You're
used to
amazing
be
at the
really
worm.
good, but now I'm old.
White people can
You're so
dance
good.
and they
Yes.
can jump.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So, anyways.
What else do people say about white people?
Redneck, come on.
Redneck. Well, I said like small town and stuff.
They always
Redneck.
think the smart people, the richy people,
Yes. Well, that is what people think. Yeah.
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 And that you're privileged.
That's true. Yes.
Everything's handed to you.
yeah.
I'm about to cry.
And then they're so sensitive.
They're very sensitive.
Do you want
It's
to?
our fault now.
It's your fault. It's your fault. You're making me feel.
We're sorry.
I'm very upset.
We're sorry.
I'm very upset.
We're gonna go to commercial because the white people are upset. Just kidding, Earl. Can you briefly describe a time where you experienced racism?
I have sort of not as in your face as you guys have, but as a provider, I'm a physician. I've definitely met patients that have not liked me because I'm white. They just assume I'm a rich white girl, which I am. But then I'm a small-minded,
Yeah.
rich white girl, and they just don't give me the time of the day.
Yeah.
But that's nothing compared to what you guys have
No,
dealt with.
and I know, but everybody can experience racism. I think it's not that white people don't experience racism. And I just want to make that point clear. Racism is hating or disliking or judging somebody based on your bias simply because of who they are.
Yeah.
Judging them once you understand what their nationality is, or their ethnicity or their race, judging them because of that. And that happens to white people too. It's different in different ways, but all of this racism manifests in different ways, and we're going to talk about it on Dana Being Dana.
Yeah.
But now we're going to turn to the Chinese delegation.
No, another thought on hers.
Oh, we're going to stay on white people.
Wait,
Well,
and the white people are
married
gonna
to
just
one.
keep talking.
We're just going to give white people more
I'm
time.
married to one. No, how about all the universities, like Northwestern or these elite schools, trying to have the right diversity in their group, and a white student with good grade may not get in against another similar
I get
grade?
that,
Is
though.
that
I get that though.
that's a discrimination?
Right. But
in my
I
book,
would say
so-
white people are very upset about that, but I get that.
Okay, so that was just
That's
another,
just
like it goes both ways.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
Okay, back to me.
Yes.
The Chinese
back to you.
people are now.
Chinese.
So my stereotype, I wear a straw hat with a bowl of rice and made in China sticker on me. That's
And
just kidding.
And you have
And I have
notes. She
notes.
has notes.
I'm a
China
nerd.
sticker.
to work.
I'm a nerd.
Notes.
If you ever been to U of I, you know the typical glass engineering degree nerd that can't talk much English, and that's one stereotype. Their name is like something you can just throw a plate against the wall and make a sound, and that's our name. You know, that's another stereotype. There you go.
You have hung out with a lot of racist people.
I have. No, I'm
if
just
you
kidding.
have all these things.
No, I did take notes. I don't want that to take over my thoughts.
Because Asians as well as Indians are very studious.
Yes.
No, we're great at math. Not everybody is great at math if you're Chinese.
Are you good in bed?
Mark? I don't know.
Long time.
I'm
He
going to
says,
defer.
he says when you try.
Oh my gosh. We're bad behavior, bad behaving Chinese tourists all over the world. We pee on the side of the road.
That's
You
amazing.
use like fountains to like wash their hands.
I've never heard of peeing on the side of the road.
I mean,
What other stereotypes
no,
are there about Chinese?
there's a phenomenon lately in the last 10 years. A lot of Chinese tourists go to historical places, Italy, France, you name it, and they
For love.
no,
To roam for love.
it's more like, okay, so China's door was closed for years. And all of a sudden it's open. People make money and they want to go see the world. And it's such a privilege for them to be there. But some stereotype have that privilege to say, okay, I'm entitled to do whatever I want. They're just bad behavior.
Tell us a brief story about when you have experienced racism.
Not, like, I don't think I want to be grouped to be, recognized as a bad behavior, Chinese tourists. So, that kind of leads into what I'm about to share. I don't think I've ever been a victim of racism. Basically, I never felt uncomfortable or, people have never been rude or said anything that made me uncomfortable. But my story came from a professional setting where I was an accountant. We networked with a bunch of lawyers at this kind of a mixer where everybody's having cocktails. I was dating Mark. He's white. This white woman, super curly hair, red hair, white woman. We started talking and I realized her husband is Korean. And we just kind of shared a little bit commonality between us and whatever. So I was actually the offender of racism in this situation. So we just started talking and whatever led to this comment that I made. I remember exactly what I said. I said, oh, people call us bananas all the time. It was a term that's being used on a lot of Asian, you're yellow on the outside, white on the inside.
I was trying to figure out what banana meant.
Again, it's not a reflection of how I believe. It's just a term that's being used
Right.
in this community. Maybe you guys don't know, but as an Asian person, I know. And
We have one. It's called the Oreo.
okay.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have a negative.
Mine's called vanilla wafer.
White on the outside, white on the inside. But keep going.
So, anyways, long story short, it wasn't a negative way by making the comment that I was saying something about, her husband being
Right.
a banana. I just, people call us bananas all the time. That's my exact word. I'm including myself into this, and
She got offended?
No, she did not.
Oh.
Listen, the night went
Okay.
on. It was great. 3 days later, my partner at the firm called me up and said, so-and-so was very upset with the comment that you made at the mixer that night. And, I was like,
Who was upset?
the wife, so what I presume happened was that this woman that I talked to went back home and talked to her husband, and her husband got offended. In turn, she probably got offended or thought more and led to my partner. So anyway,
We're
I
gonna
sort of
move on.
got in trouble, but
Yep.
Wow.
yeah.
We're gonna
So
move on to
it
the
can go
Jews.
anyway. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're gonna move on to the Jews.
Man.
Tell us a story. Well, first of all, let's start off with the stereotypes.
Let's see here. Chief, anything related to money, let's be honest, we're all lawyers, doctors, anything related to money, bankers. We have horns and a tail.
Horns and a tail.
Horns and a tail. You guys never heard that one?
No,
yeah.
never.
Yeah. And then you know, then there's the Jewish nose, the schnoz, which leads into my story, which is when I was in graduate school, I had a friend, former friend, who asked me if I had a nose job because I didn't look like I had a Jewish nose. I didn't have a big nose. And so we quickly were not friends after that. But just the fact.
Delete.
Yeah.
Unfacilitated, and he just asked you that? Or?
Yeah. Actually,
Like
it
just-
was a woman. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. She was just sitting. We were just at a party, and she was just looking at me, and she was staring at my nose, and asked me, "So can I?" And I think she, you know, had some liquid courage, and she
There you
felt
go.
like she could ask me that question, and yeah. And then she started comparing my nose to another Jewish person's nose, who has a very large nose.
What other stereotypes are there? Because we didn't touch the Jews. What other stereotypes are there that that people talk about Jewish?
I'm really curious to hear this, actually.
You don't want to work on your holy days, so.
Oh, that's true.
You don't want to work on your what?
Well, isn't it Friday?
Oh,
Friday or Saturday?
Shabbat, right?
Yeah.
Shabbat.
It's for religious reasons, but they probably just don't want to go to work.
Really?
I don't want to go to work on Friday.
I don't think that.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
just
I'm
clarify.
looking at you. I'm like, this is fascinating. Tell me
I
more.
think it's
his own world.
The
what?
what?
Living in your own
They
world.
live in their own world.
Their own world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in terms of stereotypes, like
Yes.
the marriage culture, like
Yes.
the pursuit
Marriage.
of love,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
The
Yes.
arranged marriage,
Yes.
you know, the Jewish stereotypical mother, you know, wanting to find the right mate for her child, whether it be her
yenta.
daughter,
Yeah.
the daughter, the son, all of that.
And you always hear the term Jewish princess.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
I've been called a
another-
Jap for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah, I've been called a bab. You go, girl. Okay. Another question I have is about clarifying stereotypes, just for other races, and I'll start with one of mine. I call it the Eminem factor, and what I mean by that is that everybody knows who Eminem is. He's a white MC in the hip hop world, and I think he is very talented. And I think it's very tough to be in the hip hop scene and to not be black. And so some people argue that he gets a lot of his credibility because he's white and not being talented. But I would argue the Eminem factor is having to work that much harder to be accepted in the hip hop space, in the hip hop world. And one of the stereotypes or issues that I want to clear up from the black delegation is we have to work so much harder to just be equal or to appear equal to others. I feel like I worked my tail off, like in law school and other things. And it was funny because I went to the University of Chicago, which is the top law school in the city, in the Midwest. At the time, it was
United States.
fifth in the nation,
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this one man could not get it through his head that I went to U of C. And he kept saying, he's like, I didn't know UIC had a law school. No shade, but UIC doesn't have a law school. So I was like, I didn't go to UIC. I said U of C. He was like, wait, where did you say? U of I? No, fool. I went to the University of Chicago. And he couldn't fathom, and it may not necessarily have been racist, right? But a lot of times people underestimate. A lot of times when people ask me where I went to law school, and I say the University of Chicago, and it's very understated. You guys know me. I'm not running around like, ooh, this is where I went to law school. But they're like, oh. The response is like, that's a really tough school to get into. That's a really smart school. White people go there.
See, people that aren't lawyers don't know that, but lawyers know that.
Lawyers know
Yeah.
that, absolutely. And so that's just one of the stereotypes or issues I just want to clear up from the black delegation. Any other delegations will wish to have the floor?
It's the same thing with Mexican. We try so hard to like fit in each side of each ethnicity, because it's the same with us. When we find a job or we award, it's anything. It's the same. We work so hard to fit there because we need to like be. Not we need. We want to be acceptable and see the real Mexican people. We are like loving people. We are care people.
Yep.
We are like workers people. And we all the time we have a lot of time hard work to fit there.
Right. Right.
I think with Indians, we're also kind of battling ourselves because Indians have their own stereotypes that we have to fit. So it's kind of difficult, especially for Indians, to live up to the Indian standard and still live in an American world and still be American. So it gets pretty tough, and we're probably our own worst enemies because we battle so hard to prove that we're just as good as what they think Indians are. Indians are super smart. They're all going to be educated doctors or whatever. But
What do you do?
yeah, that's okay. So anyway,
She's a doctor. It didn't come easy.
I worked hard.
Yeah, you did.
No, but I mean, I feel like it's in every race.
Right.
We kind of have to prove to ourselves and our own people that we are still part of our culture as well as still acclimating to what America is like too.
Right. Right.
What other race?
I was about to say
Oh,
something.
go ahead. I'm
Here,
sorry.
1 second.
White privilege.
Yeah. But no, what I wanted to say about what you said, there are some bitter white people. Bitter white people that, I mean, they don't feel like they feel like people get away with more, they can't get into the school they want and they blame somebody else. You know, I mean, that's where this all comes from. When someone doesn't feel like they're part of anything and is not successful in life and they're bitter and they're angry and they're looking for someone to blame.
Yes.
And that's a lot of where racism comes from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People are scapegoating other people
Yes.
to deal with their own shortcomings, to make excuses for their own. Sometimes you just didn't get in because you just didn't get in.
Right. Yep.
Sometimes you didn't get accepted because you just weren't good enough. Sometimes somebody's idea is better than yours, and it has nothing to do with race.
Yep.
You
And
don't
I
want
think
to
that-
harm.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think that's how people pin stuff
Yeah.
on other people. Speaking of all the stuff we're not standing for, I sent you guys, and we talked about Dave Chappelle is a comedian, and he did a racial draft, which was hilarious, about giving people back to different races and claiming others in your race. So we should fill up our bottle.
I just went like this.
Our wine. This wine is really good. Thank you to our wine sponsor, Direct Sellers. We're gonna talk about our sponsors later, but
Deliciousness.
we appreciate the wine, and we'll
So
talk about how
good.
you can have some of this fabulous wine
Awesome.
in a minute. But Dave Chappelle had a hilarious episode on the racial draft, and so my question to you all is, if you can pick and choose who you include in your race, right? Who are the people, some of the people that you would throw back, meaning you would give them away, and who do you want to claim in your race? Does anybody want to go first?
I got somebody to throw.
Who do you want to throw back?
Donald Trump.
Oh,
Fire's going up. Fire's going up.
The white people are throwing back Donald Trump.
and I would like to accept Oprah instead.
Oprah is now black.
No, Oprah's white. And
I'm sorry,
Donald-
Oprah is white.
Who wants Donald? Anybody?
Crickets.
You might. You said.
Oh yeah, I did say that.
Chinese people
Chinese
want
people
Donald.
want Donald. So Donald
Because
Trump
he-
is now Chinese.
He's very successful businessman.
Successful.
Businessman
Not really.
and raised very smart and successful kids. So I think
I think all of those things that you just said are questionable.
It's very questionable. It's
that's-
it may
that's
be
what
fake
Chinese people
news.
say.
It might be fake news.
don't know.
Fake Chinese propaganda. To be honest.
Well, the black people are now giving back tonight. We are throwing back Stacey Dash Omarosa.
Omarosa.
and Clarence Thomas.
But Omarosa
Wow.
doesn't work for the White House anymore.
That's okay, because she's no longer black. We are claiming tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the black delegation is claiming Meghan Markle. She is officially black.
Yes, she is.
The Princess and the Frog is real.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the black folks tonight. Anybody else?
Well, I think on behalf of the Jews, we'd like to throw back the whole Kushner family.
Yes. Yes. There you go.
Javanka,
Speaking of
that's
them,
you.
yes.
And I want to take someone who really want to take someone and hold her up. I want to, even though she is actually a member of the tribe, the notorious RBG. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes.
We are
Yes.
for sure claiming you tonight.
Oh,
We're
yes.
claiming Ruth,
Yes.
Ruth is a Jew tonight.
Please live for a very long time. Thank you.
Seriously, don't die.
Please don't die. Please don't die.
Probiotics. Anybody else?
I wasn't prepared for this.
It's okay.
No?
Don't worry about it. It's not in your
I
notes.
think.
I was too busy studying to
Excited.
know about actors and famous people.
And also, by the way, my husband would like us to throw back Harvey Weinstein and the whole Weinstein.
Oh, yes,
thing.
yes.
I
Me
I would
too.
definitely
Me
get him
too.
off your plate.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Get him off your plate. What other race do you feel is hardest on your race?
My own.
Hard.
Your own.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I think, and that's what's disappointing to me is with so much racism that you're fighting externally, right, outside of your race. You're dealing with people who question you and who claim your achievements are based on affirmative action. You're dealing with people who, don't like you because of your skin color or your accomplishments or whatever you're doing. But to have the inner racism, meaning like within different minorities, I think is disappointing. And I also find racism between minorities, where we can be coming together and appreciating each other. Sometimes I feel like people are battling for the lower, at least I'm not black, or at least I'm not Indian, or at least I'm not that, right? That's what I find to be most disappointing.
I say, at least I'm not a white man.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
So I just have to say, I think you're absolutely right about it being, internally your own race. For me, my own religion, and it's a question of, is Judaism a race? And certainly there's been a lot of history, and I think recently when we saw, the whatever we want to call what happened in Charlottesville,
Yes.
you have people marching with tiki torches, which I think is terrifying, and they're saying chanting blood and soil, which are Nazi language.
That's right.
And so you have that component. So to me, that is absolutely. So what is the biggest threat to my race? Potentially that. And then so you have that component in the United States. And then I am not Israeli. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. My family came from Eastern Europe, but then you have this component of when you go to Israel. And I recently was in Israel for work, and you're surrounded, not you, but when you're there, you're surrounded by actual countries that don't recognize your right to exist. And so I think that there's the the diaspora of being in the United States, which is a very different type of racism that we're dealing with, and the rise of anti-Semitism and so forth, that is to me absolutely terrifying. And to me, yes, there's the inner inner struggle, inner conflict, but there is a very real threat, I feel, to my race, to my religion, and then you have the whole thing going on in the Middle East, and so I definitely feel it on multiple fronts.
What other race do you identify with most? Black people.
Black
we're
people.
claiming my L too.
I think
Black
white
people.
for us.
White. I would say I identify most with Jews because of the shared struggle. When like the Holocaust, and I've actually studied this in college. The Holocaust, and like when your people go through something like the Holocaust and slavery, there's actually books and literature written about that, and there's a shared bond and a kindred spirit, which I've experienced. One of my best friends, shouts out to my friend Devin, growing up, was a Jewish girl. And we were friends from 3rd grade. I mean, we're still friends today, but we bonded. And it's one of the things that we actually talked about and explored. And then I would also say Latinas, because we share similarities. We share similar judgments, too, in terms of, like, being amazing dancers, all this great lovers, like everything's over-sexualized and all of that. We get a lot of that, but it's also very passionate lovers, great family, and all
I
those
was
other
going to
things
say
too.
Hispanic because
Yes, the family
the
dynamic.
family dynamic, very
Yeah.
tough love.
Yes.
You'd rather say, you know, put on another coat, here, eat this, than
Yes.
say I love you. Like, not
Yeah.
verbal, more action. I think that's very similar to my culture. And also the work ethics. I think hardworking, trying to provide. We all come here for a
Helpful.
reason. I think that if I have to try to find similarities and something that be identifying, you know, I guess that will be Spanish, Latinos.
Thank you.
She said gracias.
Yes.
Muchas gracias.
So what is beautiful about your race? What are you most proud of? You wake up in the morning and you say, I am a black lady. Insert race. But what is it that you're most proud of? What are you proud of about your culture, about your people? I think every race has beauty in it. And I think every race has things that we all need to work on, right? Nobody's perfect. But what do you appreciate about your race? What's beautiful about your race?
Can I talk again? I feel like I've been talking on that.
You
wanna
can. Go ahead. It's
I have a whole page of notes.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Shut up.
No, I'd say work ethics, being hard on yourself to be better, and the rich literature and culture and history of the roots, the traditions that Chinese or a lot of the Asian countries carry. I think that's something should not be forgotten, which in recent days, all you see is when I talk about bad behaving Chinese tourists, that those are throughout the window. The Cultural Revolution that China had gone through for 20 years between the 60s and 70s has destroyed a lot of beauty from that perspective. And just, I think just the family bond, I think that the value and respect elderly people, doesn't matter who they are. I think that there's a lot of values that I was taught as a little girl that I think nowadays young Chinese people, or even like older generation, maybe they have forgotten. I don't know.
And I think
they're more brand catching. They got money in their pockets. They're buying houses. They're getting Louis Vuittons, and you know, like there's that. It's, you know, the stereotype versus what you truly are kind of disconnected. So that's my 2 cents.
Can the white delegation talk just for a minute?
you may.
So I just want to say, as a white person, I know you guys all know this, but we came from someplace. So, you know, your grandparents may be from Poland, your great grandparents may be from Ireland, you could be Parisian, you could be, you could be anything, you could be Italian. So, I mean, there is a great culture and history with the white culture. And we come from a variety of different backgrounds. But I do want to say the thing I love about our background is that there are some bad white people, but there are good white people. I mean, there are good white people that have stood with, with black comrades in the civil rights movement.
There has to be a voice for the
black.
majority.
There's been white people that
I
have
think
that
that
helped
races,
free
we have the
people
good
from the
ones and the
Holocaust.
bad
Yeah,
ones.
so there's still, I don't want to be all like down on the white people, because there's
No.
really good white people
Yes.
out there and in history.
And we talked about this before. The Underground Railroad would not have been possible without the help of white people.
Yeah.
We all need each other.
Yes.
So this isn't a thing where we just all need white people. We all need Jewish people.
Yeah.
I need you, Maya.
I
Yeah,
know.
you're my girl.
Yeah.
But we all need each other. And the sooner we come to realize that, I think the better off
Right.
we all will be.
We need
Right.
everybody.
I've done several shows on Dana Being Dana. This is my 21st show, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in, for sharing. It's been an amazing couple of months, and I appreciate everybody for riding with me. Everybody on my show so far has been a friend of mine, and we've talked about so many different topics, whether it be music, whether it be love, whether it be grief. And it's, I told you, and I'll say this time and time again, my show's about the human connection. It's about people coming together. And this was a show to chuckle and laugh about our differences over fabulous wine, but also appreciate our similarities and just so many of the things that we have in common. And as we start to close up the show, I just want to talk about solving this race problem, because you mentioned Charlottesville, and I actually wrote an article about it. Charlottesville was hard for me, and just seeing stuff with racism and all that, because my life is so diverse. I grew up in a predominantly white environment. I went to a historically black college. I went to law school, a predominantly white law school. And so my world and the world that I raised my children in, I posted a picture of our kids, and it's a very diverse picture.
Can I say something just real quick?
Of course, you're white.
As a black woman, you were very open to being friends with other cultures.
Yes.
And I would say that sometimes that's not the case.
Right.
Especially, I mean, every culture is the same, but you've always been, and I don't know if that's because of how you were raised, where you were raised, but you have always been very accepting and very open about just being friends with people that don't look like you.
Right.
And I think not just be friend, it's like be a family.
Be a family.
Be
Yes,
a family.
you're very
Be a
accepting.
family.
Taking the time to actually understand that they're people, not really race.
Right.
Yes.
Well, let me say this
I
about
love you.
Let me
That's what I
say
wanted
this.
to say.
Let me say this about you guys. When I have been at some of my lowest points, some of the hardest times, Robin, you worked with me. You know how crazy that had been at times, right?
It's intense.
It was on the days that you came to work, not Fridays.
Lucky you.
But I've and since I left the firm, I've gotten divorced, and I've had so many different life changes. I've had kids. Well, I had my kids then, but the point is that when I was going through a tough time, some of the people who showed up for me the most were not necessarily the people who looked just like me. You helped me pack up my house because you're hardworking. No, but because you're my girl.
Mm-hmm.
You and your whole family showed up to help support me. And so you're not just my friend, but you're my sister. Don't cry. I love you. And Alexis, you came too. And I will never forget that. And that's what I mean. So it's not hard to accept people for who they are, because I just see people as people. And when you just get to talking to people, you get to know people, you can always find common interests with people. If you're a Star Wars junkie, right? Mm-hmm. You can find another Star Wars junkie. And it can be somebody who just doesn't even look like you. What I don't like is when people don't give other people the chance.
Right.
Yes.
Because they prejudge them based on just what they see.
Right.
How
Stereotypes
they
are
look.
formed when you're looking at a distance.
Yeah, just
That's
looking.
exactly right. And so that's what resonates with me. That's why you're family. And Anne and Nan, because it rhymes. Black people love to be Robin. But we bonded through our kids. Our daughters really bonded, and that's what I love, because both of your girls are biracial, and they bond with my daughter. And so my daughter's never the only minority, in the room at the time, but it was never about color. And we talk about our village because we're a group of friends, and we hang out socially, we connect socially, we support each other socially, and it's not about color. It's about who needs help tonight. What is somebody going through? And so when I was very transparent about my divorce and my life and all these other things, and people showed up, and we're all transparent. I'm not telling what everybody else is going through, but we all show up for each other, and that's what's so important. That's what's beautiful, and that's how you solve the race problem, in my opinion. I think showing up for people, showing love to people. Jackie from Orange Theory had a great post on Facebook this week, and I just want to read it. She said, "Hug everyone you care about as often as you can.
Claremont.
Then hug strangers too.
Yeah.
We all have lessons to teach each other, and love is contagious." How do you defeat the race problem in America? I think it's by just showing up for each other, spreading love, not accepting, rejecting the notions of hate. When you hear stuff in the media, when you hear stuff from propaganda, when you hear stuff in your home, when you hear stuff at your party, you step up and you stand up and you say, hey, that's not right. That's not true. That's not accurate. Because you have examples of good people of other races, right? There's going to be a few bad apples. There's bad apples in all of them. And that's why we were kind of airing our laundry, right?
Yes.
Y'all can have Stacey Dash and Omarosa. But you better not say nothing about.
And Donald.
Absolutely. But you better not say anything about Meghan Markle. but every color, every race has bad, right?
Can I make one comment on that?
Absolutely.
It's a strong statement, and I think also the way to like stop racism is to, when we try to protect our family, our friends, we should do it with love, because racism stops with you.
Right.
The moment you retaliate with hate, you're doing the same thing.
Right.
Yes.
Like I heard, I don't know who said this, but Nan heard somebody call her Oriental. And I think it was an older person. I don't know, maybe it was my mom. I don't think my mom did that.
No, it
But
wasn't your
Nan
mom.
would never be
It was Chip.
offended.
No, I'm just kidding.
She'd just be like, you know, she's just like,
Yeah.
well, you don't really call people Oriental. You call rugs Oriental, and we're Asian.
That was the time you experienced racism.
But
But
honestly,
it
but
doesn't-
that
it-
doesn't.
it
She
didn't
doesn't get
affect me.
angry about
But
that.
it's not about your reaction.
But
and whether
she
or not
knows. But
you're
she
offended.
knows that person wasn't educated. So
Right.
she
I
had
don't
to
think the
educate
other
them.
person is trying to hurt my feelings.
But
or-
racism
right.
doesn't always come to.
It's ignorance.
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly.
Yes.
It's not always an intentional.
Right.
Right.
It's not always an intentional thing.
But,
It's
like-
more of an insensitive or
Right.
a judgment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But like what I said to, the white girl
Right.
about her husband and I feel like if I'm including myself in this, I'm safe, but that's not true. So I guess
That's right.
Right.
that
You're safe here though, Nan.
Yes, you are.
we're in a
always.
safe zone.
Yes,
Safe
safe
zone.
zone. Safe zone. All right, let's talk about the wine real quick.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
White
look,
people.
look.
just running things. Can't even run my own
Just
show.
I'm trying to help you.
We need
The wine is
5
so
minutes.
good.
But we do want to thank our sponsors. First, I want to
Yes.
thank my guests. I appreciate you guys all for being here. More importantly, I appreciate you for being my friends. And I mean that sincerely. I think that this was a very important show. We've talked about it. We talked about topics, but we didn't share the answers. And I just appreciate you guys coming and being open because it can be a very sensitive subject. And I just hope that we've demonstrated not only by showing up here, but also just by being candid and honest about who we are.
We gotta do our dance off.
We're gonna have a big hug. We're having a dance off afterwards. But I want to thank Cynthia Armster from Direct Sellers, who sponsored tonight and provided wine. It's been fabulous. It's almost
Cheers.
gone.
Cheers.
You are fantastic. I'll be posting
Thank you.
more information about Cynthia's business and how you can get wine that we are enjoying. They are running a special for the month of January. It's 4 bottles for $50, which is fantastic. Thank you so much to My Chocolate Soul, another sponsor. Chief Sweets Officer is Ramona Thomas. They are also offering a promotion from Dana Being Dana. Use the code Dana Radio to enjoy 15% off for amazing all-natural chocolates. I know you don't have your Valentine's Day gift yet, so go to mychocolatesoul.com. Enjoy the discount, 15% off. It's fantastic. Also, I want to thank Herbert Holler from Freedom Party Chicago. Freedom Party is this Friday night. Freedom Party is one of the best parties in the city. Old school hip-hop, R&B. It's a fun time. It only costs you $5. So that means Jews will be there. Just joking.
Very excited.
I'm joking. Herbert is
Yeah.
Jewish and he wishes he could
I'm
be
just
here.
too old.
He'll be on the next show. But the Freedom Party Chicago is a great time and it's going to be amazing. So thank you, Freedom Party Chicago, for sponsoring tonight's show. Next week, Just for Girlfriends is a company that was started by a very good friend of mine. And it's about women just getting out. Women supporting women. And I'm a huge fan of women supporting women, which is why I want you all to tune in next week. You can learn all about Just for Girlfriends and what they do and how you can be a part of the fun. Thank you all so much for joining. I want to implore you all before we leave just to spread love. I think it's so important. This race show was important to me, Martin Luther King Week, especially given the stuff that we're seeing in the news, what's going on with our president. Show up, spread love. That's Dana Being Dana. Thank you all.
She found the hat. I don't have one. Just found this on this.
Oh my gosh. I cannot.
Oh my gosh! I totally just saw that.
You're amazing.
Hail, hail.
本是
Hail,
我
hail,
反
hail
红
right
色。
here.